Welcome to the tutorial on how to color these villains using our Rogues Gallery set from Olo Marker. Definitely my favorite marker for many reasons. They're very customizable. You get more colors per set if that's what you wish, because you can customize the colors on either side of the marker. If you prefer having the same color on both sides with a brush tip and the other side is a chisel tip, then that's up to you. I actually work mostly with the brush tips, and that's my choice. Obviously you have your own choice, whatever you prefer. The chisel tip helps you fill in larger areas. Working at this size, we shouldn't have any problem creating this piece or parts of this piece with just the brush tips. All right, and so I'm going to get started. I'm going to call out some of these colors that I'm using. This is what the set will look like. It'll come in a different container. It's a cool plastic wallet that holds 16 markers, 32 colors total if you're splitting the markers. That's all I'm going to use to color this. We're going to start with the Joker, everybody's favorite. I tend to work light areas to dark areas. With him, white, a big part of his color. One of the reasons why I start with his skin is because it establishes the low, medium, or the white point of the piece. I'm using B 7.0 to shade the Joker skin. And at this point, one of the things that I do before I start coloring, I do read the inks. It's showing me that Scott and Jim have established the light source coming from above the Joker. All the shadows are being cast downward into the rest of his face and skin. And so I'm going to go ahead and shade from the darkest part of the skin up towards the light, leaves the white there as part of the highlight. You'll see my brush strokes move that way. Start at the darkest area and I move up. The strokes also follow the contour of that area, and so that you saw me kind of doing the eyelids. I was going in an arc, mimicking the arc of the sphere of the eye, and that helps give it that shape, that mass that we're looking for. And so I kind of work my way through the whole piece. All this is in shadow. Maybe a cast shadow from his bottom lip onto his chin. He's got a big old chin. And so I like using this kind of greenish gray on his skin. It's an ode to the Joker from the animated series that Bruce Timm and Paul Dini created. Great animation way back when, and so when I was coloring Hush, borrowed a little bit from them in the way of the Joker skin. There was also those red skies from the animated series over Gotham. That was a big, probably my favorite thing that they did as far as any kind of cinematography or lighting. Those red skies were just gorgeous and so great to work with. So I kind of started to use those same concepts and bring them into a not so animated look, but more of this realistic style that Jim brings to comics. We've thrown in some of the shadowing, and I'm gonna go ahead and do the same with the eyes. I like to give the Joker the yellow eyes with white skin. You want to make other stuff pop, and so I'm going to use the yellow on the eyes, on the teeth, and I'm using Y 2.0. It's a nice light yellow. It gives you some nice definition here. If the light source is up here, then those shadows are going to cast on the opposite side of the light. And so the teeth are fairly flat, and so they don't really round too much, but you see that I add more yellow as I move farther away into the mouth. Gives it this really kind of sickly, even kind of evil look. Then I'm going to use WG3, that's a warm gray 3, to accentuate some of those shadows, using a very light touch here as far as pressure goes. I don't want too much of the ink to come in and darken it. I'm also showing you that there's two kinds of shadows. We have a gradual shadow or a regular shadow, and then we have cast shadows. A cast shadow is when one object overlaps another one in between the light and casts that shadow. And so when you have a cast shadow, you have a very distinct hard edge. And so that's why you see me drawing a very distinct line here for the cast shadow. Same with the tongue here. I'm going to cast this shadow to the teeth. Okay, and then the other shadows, they kind of blend in. Once you've done your shadow, you can go back to your highlight color and blend those in to soften that transition. Moving on, we're going to go to the eyes. I'm going to use red. That was the color that we used for Hush. I'm moving towards the light here, but leaving some room for the highlights. I'm going to use that same red, and this is R1.5 for his lips. And I'm not going to fill it all in. Eyes being wet will come to a full highlight. This is why I like the brush tip. You get some really nice detail work if you want to. Come in with R1.7, and I'm going to shade over that base red. And so anything that's in shadow, I'm going to give it a transition from that black into that lighter color. I'm going to do the same here. I'm going to use that dark red. Lastly, I'm going to come in with an R.3, 0.3, and just blend out the highlight on the eyes, especially on the eyes here, to white, and then into the white on the lips. Really subtle, but it gives it a nice touch, a nice transition. I'm now going to grab my B4.6 and finish filling in the eyes. I'm going to go back to R.3 and we're going to do the gums and the tongue. At this point, I'm using this as a base color, and so my strokes really only are here to follow those contours. And we're going to shade with R5.5. I didn't really fill in everything that was in shadow with the lighter color. That's because I'm going to use the shadow color in there anyway, and so, trying to economize the ink, not use it all up, filling in something that's going to have another color go over it anyway. All right, I'm going to come back, help with that transition. Olo also has a blender, a 0 marker, which is a blender marker, and so you can use that to help blend your colors coming back in here. And remember, we talked about the cast shadow, and so the upper lip is going to be casting a shadow on the gums as well as the teeth, and so I'll establish the cast shadow first and then shade so that it looks like gums are indenting into the teeth. I'm going to take that same R.3. I like giving the Joker these kind of sickly, it looks like he's been up all night scheming his world domination or how to beat the Batman, and so I just take a little bit around the eyes here. You can even take it into the inside of the eyes a little bit. This really light touch. You can see me going super light here. Moving on to the hair, we're going with G1.5. Very reflective, very shiny. And you see me push to white in the areas where the hair is closest to the light. Using that really fine tip to fill in. A lot of crazy hair on the Joker. And then his eyelashes are going to be green as well, and so kind of coming in with that green. Does a nice job of kind of popping the eyeballs from the red around his eyes. Accentuates that kind of maniacal look to him. G1.7, add a little bit more shading to the hair to give it more volume. And you always see me, again, I'm kind of almost throwing lines of color into the highlight so that they disappear into the highlight, into that lighter green. It's obviously darkest as it comes into the scalp, backwards in space a little bit. Same with the tips over here. Continue here. We're gonna go with a suit. We'll start with a BV 1.4. And part of the suit's right here. That's the sleeve. And then we move into the rest of the suit. Just long strokes here, contouring the shape of the shoulder, moving into the chest. Long strokes, overlapping strokes, kind of try and minimize the streaking here. And as we start to render it with the darker tone of purple, you'll see that that's also helpful. Going here into the lapel and always moving, always following those contours. V2.6 is going to be our shadow color, and moving it up in from the shadows into the highlight. Come back with that lighter color and blend it out. We have O2.4. So here's the shirt and the collar. And this is the other part of the shirt. Not a lot of shirt here for us, but obviously when you're coloring all your different Joker commissions, you'll definitely need these colors. So just a little bit of a cast shadow here. I'm gonna blend it out, blend it out, blend it out. Because now we're bringing in his tie, and I'm gonna go back to the G1.5 and G1.7. And trying to give it a little bit of dimension with that cast shadow. Forgot part of the shirt, which is right here. That's the collar. So we're gonna come in here, blend it out. All right, we're almost there. Just a couple more things and we'll have them done. I would like to add a little bit more shadow into the Joker, and so I'm gonna use CG3, that's Cool Gray 3, and push some of the really deep shadow areas. Casting some shadows here and there. I'm going to stay with the Cool Gray 3, and then I'm going to fill in what we see of the gun here. I'm leaving some edges white because we're going to come back with the CG5. All that's left is the glove. And so we're going to go back to BG 7.0. And with this, I'm actually going to leave less white showing, mostly because I really want the white from his skin to be what you see that really stands out. You'll see me use this BG more as a filler, and then come back with that CG3 to drop in the shadows. And there you go. That's the Joker for you, which is one of the colors that we have in the set here. We're bringing you colors for 6 villains and Batman, right? And so when we get to the second piece, you're going to see me color a lot more villains and, of course, Batman. This great cover that Jim Scott and I produced for Hush Volume 1 back in the early 2000s. Hope you enjoy it.